Hey guys, this is Molly. Us as the Simple Kind have been wanting to give a report back of sorts about our trip for those of you who have supported us and cheered us on. And so we thought a video might be a neat way to do that. So here we are. We went on this trip to Cambodia and Thailand to better understand the fashion industry from the perspective of people who are very much involved and affected by the production side of things. We have a lot of hopes as a brand to help empower women around the world, but we believe the best starting place is just to listen and learn as much as we can, because we know we don't have it all figured out. The trip was very instrumental in helping us to mold our identity as the Simple Kind, to figure out what we want to do, how we want to do it, and who we want to partner with. We spent our first week in Phnom Penh, which is the capital of Cambodia and home to many traditional mainline garment factories, as well as a huge number of NGOs and social businesses, a few of whom we were able to connect with. Our first few days we spent visiting some central sites of the Khmer Rouge, which, for those of you who may not know, was the genocide that the Cambodian people experienced in the 1970s. And so recent a tragedy obviously has an effect on the psyche of a nation, and I feel like tragedy is actually a really weak word to describe what happened. I think taking time to visit the prisons and the killing fields really helped us to better understand the historical and present climate of the people we were living among, as well as foster an incredible respect for the strength and dignity of the Cambodian people. We spent the rest of our time in Phnom Penh visiting social businesses and NGOs that empower women in various ways. Some of them worked with survivors of sex trafficking, offering rehabilitation, specialized education, job training, and employment in various means. Others worked with survivors of labor trafficking, and others were there to provide really good jobs to men and women in the community while tending to the soil of the local economy. From there, we spent a few days in northern Cambodia in Siem Reap, learning more about the richness of the Khmer culture through Angkor Wat, which are some of the oldest temples in the world. And from there we crossed the border by land into Thailand to set up our next camp just a few hours south of Bangkok in a city called Pattaya. Pattaya is known for being one of the sex tourism capitals of the world. It's super beautiful, it's on the beach, and the city came to be how it is today because of the demand for prostitution during the wars that Southeast Asia saw in the last century. We spent time with just one organization there called the Tamar Center, who have been in Pattaya for over a decade, and who reach out to women and men working in the bars, karaoke clubs, and brothels, offering rehabilitation programs and transitional vocational training. Like anything, when you take time to look at an issue of injustice up close, you start to see the intricacies, the little details, the contradictions. Things are way more complex up close than they are from far away. Take, for instance, the fact that it's actually kind of normal for girls and women who are rescued from situations of sex trafficking to return to those situations just months after being out of them. Sex work in Southeast Asia is largely voluntary for women because of the cultural expectation to provide financially for your parents. The stories you'll hear over and over again are that these women quit school, left their villages, and came to the cities because there weren't jobs available for them at home. I think one of the most troubling things that we learned is that over 60% of the women who work in the sex industry in Cambodia came from garment factories. It was the same thing. They needed jobs, and the city had a ton of factories just waiting to hire these women because they have huge orders from major Western brands who are selling to a market that likes to go shopping every weekend. The conditions in these factories are poor, laborers often become indentured, and rent for housing around these factories is sky high to keep people working. But outside of the physical working conditions, the most sincere oppression comes from being looked down upon. Being considered second tier in society, women are often taken advantage of by the managers in the factories, and their worth is measured by what they can produce and not who they are. They lose hope in their sense of personal worth. You can make the same amount of money that you would working a month in a garment factory in a week in prostitution. And so women who are driven to work in these factories out of a legitimate need find themselves dehumanized and exploited. So the transition from factory work to sex work is disturbingly easy and preferred. We heard accounts of women who had decided to work in bars after desperately wanting to leave garment factory work, who were then rescued from sex work and then were given jobs back in the factories that they had just left. If we care about combating sexual exploitation, we've got to look at the roots and very practically where it comes from. And for us, as the simple kind that puts a fire in our belly. We want to provide dignified jobs for women so they don't have to leave their families, so that they can live lives they're proud of and not lose their sense of self-worth or hope, so that their children can eat well, finish getting their education, break the cycle of poverty, and keep the ability to dream. We want to be on the preventative side of human trafficking and offer those who buy clothes around the world an opportunity to, with their purchases, participate in building up of lives instead of tearing them down. Out of the handful of folks we were able to connect with on our trip, there are 3 groups in particular that we feel we may have a future with. Our partnership is very grassroots and is just beginning, so we'll tell you guys more about that in the coming months as they start to take shape. We don't want to be part of creating NGO dependence. We really respect and believe in the folks who are dedicated to investing in local economies, empowering local makers, and petitioning to improve labor laws and factory working conditions. Our plan of action now is to learn how to be a good business. We're placing an order with an ethical workshop in Denver to produce an inventory of baby dresses, and our plan is to participate in a few local markets this year to kind of make ourselves known. We're able to make friends with a young woman who owns a textile booth in Phnom Penh, and we bought fabric from her so we can start making dresses for women. My team, the Simple Kind team, is moving to Denver this spring, and we're really excited to all be in the same place. We really value the notion of being a for-profit business, and we think that's really important. But we've also realized that some of our more long-term hopes and aspirations don't really fall under that category. So we're actually going to begin the process of creating a nonprofit where we can do more advocacy and awareness work. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our story. Thank you for your support and your friendship. It means the world, and we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. We'll keep you in the loop and keep an eye out for some exciting things coming.